So yesterday we talked about the writing process and how it takes the shape of a circle when we lay out all of the stages. You probably recognize this image from yesterday's lesson, but you might have noticed there's actually a new part. Take a look at what's highlighted in yellow. That's actually stage 5 of the writing process, and we call this stage the editing stage. Can you say editing? This stage comes after you've done some drafting and revising, and we usually go back and forth between those 3 stages the entire time we're writing a piece. So, let's zoom in on the editing stage so we can learn a new strategy to practice today. So, in the editing stage, your job is to do what's called proofreading and to correct any mistakes you find in your work. When you proofread, this means you're looking for any type of error, things that don't make sense, which you should have mostly caught during the revision stage, but sometimes you find some more errors while you're proofreading, which is totally okay because, like I said, we're constantly going back and forth between the stages, especially the drafting, revising, and editing stages. You're also looking for spelling errors, whether you have used proper punctuation, whether you followed all of the writing rules like using capital letters at the beginning of a sentence or for proper nouns, and whether your paragraphs all flow together, like you've put them in the proper place. This stage is super important and is one of the last stages of the writing process, which means you start this stage when you're getting close to publishing a piece of your work. So today I'm going to be teaching you an editing strategy called to and or not to and. Now the way that this strategy works is I start by rereading a paragraph that I've already written. And I ask myself, where are there parts that I see the word and lots of times in one sentence? And then I have to ask myself, which parts of these sentences need to stay connected and which parts can be separated into 2 different sentences? And as I'm doing that, I'm thinking about where might I add a period and where might I keep the word and? So sometimes I might decide to keep the word and sometimes I might decide to cut the word and. So I'm going to be showing you a paragraph from my Christmas Traditions essay, and I'm going to model how to use this strategy to and or not to and. So the strategy to and or not to and has 3 basic steps. Step 1 is to reread your writing and find the ands. Step 2 is to ask yourself, do I want to keep or cut those ands? And then if you decide to cut them, then you need to think about how you're going to rewrite that part. So I'm going to reread this paragraph, Christmas trees, and I'm going to be asking myself, am I going to cut or keep the ands that I see where there are many of them in one spot? So I'm going to start by rereading. This paragraph is called Christmas trees. At Christmas time, lots of people also have the tradition of getting Christmas trees to decorate, and to decorate a Christmas tree, you need lots of things. So I see one and there, so I'm going to use an editing pen, and I'm just going to keep track of all of my ands by underlining them with a blue pen. I could have used pink pen, I could have used an orange pen, a brown pen, a yellow pen, it doesn't matter. I just happened to grab a blue pen. Like for example, wait a second, I'm having a flashback to yesterday's lesson. Does like for example sound like I'm ready to publish this book, or does it sound like I'm talking to a friend? It sounds like I'm talking to a friend. So should I maybe delete the word like and just have for example? I think so. So I'm revising while I'm also editing, because that's how the writing process works. For example, you need lights, and some of them twinkle, and some of them are white, and some of them are brightly colored. You also need ornaments, which are basically bulbs or other objects that you hang on the branches of your Christmas tree. Christmas ornaments are sometimes glass and can and also can be homemade, and that means you can make them using things like clay or fabric. Other things people decorate their Christmas trees with include tinsel, tree toppers, and those can be angels or stars, and candy canes, and ribbon, and garland, and candles. As you can see, there are so many different types of decorations to use to decorate a Christmas tree. What do you use to decorate yours? All right, so as you can see in my paragraph, I have quite a few ands. You can see all of my ands are underlined with the blue pen. So my job now is to go back through and decide which of those ands am I going to cut and which of those ands am I going to keep. Remember, I also want to think about which of these ideas or parts need to stay connected and which of those can I separate. If I can separate them, that means I'm going to cut the and. If they need to be connected, I'm going to keep the and. So, let me reread and I'll decide if I want to cut or keep. At Christmas time, lots of people also have the tradition of getting Christmas trees to decorate. And to decorate a Christmas tree, you need lots of things. Maybe I don't think those need to stay connected. So I'm going to cross out that and because I'm going to cut it. I replace it with a period. And then I just reread what I have left to see if it still makes sense. To decorate a Christmas tree, you need lots of things. Yeah, that still makes sense, but I can't start a sentence with a lowercase t, so I'm going to use those 3 lines to show that that needs to be capitalized. Then I keep going. For example, you need lights, and some of them twinkle, and some of them are white, and some of them are brightly colored. Okay, so I feel like that information is related, but it doesn't necessarily need to be connected in one very long sentences with lots and lots of ands. So I'm going to do some editing here. So for example, you need lights, maybe a period there. And then I can replace this. Well, I can actually cross out that and then I'm going to underline that S because it's the beginning of my sentence now. So now I have a capital S, and let's see if this makes sense. Some of them twinkle, and some of them are white, and some of them are brightly colored. Okay, so I still have a couple of ands, and I think I can get rid of one of them. So some of them twinkle, and some of them are white, and some of them are brightly colored. So when I read that sentence, I'm asking myself, which of those parts are actually related to one another? Twinkling lights don't necessarily have to connect to the part where I say that some of them are white and some of them are brightly colored. Saying that some lights are white and some are brightly colored are both giving examples and descriptions of what the light's colors could be. But saying that they twinkle isn't quite related to the colors. So I'm going to have this part come next. So I'm going to capitalize this S, and I'm actually going to move it all the way to the front here. So it's going to sound like this. For example, you need lights. Some of them are white and some of them are brightly colored. Period. Some of them twinkle. That makes a lot more sense now. I'm going to keep going. You also need ornaments, which are basically bulbs or other objects that you hang on the branches of your Christmas tree. Christmas ornaments are sometimes glass and also can be homemade, and that means you can make them using things like clay or fabric. I think I can get rid of one of those ands. So let me reread and think about this again. Christmas ornaments are sometimes glass and also can be homemade. okay? So I think those connect, and they need to stay connected because they're related to each other. So I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to add a period. I'm going to cross out the word and, because anytime that I decide to cut the word and, I'm replacing it with a period or some other type of punctuation. But I need to make sure that the next part still makes sense since I took a word away. I also need to make sure that I capitalize the T because now that's the beginning of my sentence. So Christmas ornaments are sometimes glass and also can be homemade. I think I mean to switch these, and can also be homemade. That makes more sense. That means you can make them using things like clay or fabric. Yeah, that sentence totally makes sense without the word and it also makes sense when it's not connected to the sentence that came before. I'm going to keep going. Other things people decorate their Christmas trees with include tinsel, tree toppers, and those can be angels or stars, and candy canes, and ribbon, and garland, and candles. Wow, that's a lot of ands. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ands in one sentence. I think I definitely need to get rid of some of those. So I'm asking myself, what parts are related and what needs to stay connected and what parts can be separated? So I'm rereading. Other things people decorate their Christmas trees with include tinsel, tree toppers, and those can be angels or stars. So this part about tree toppers, this is all related, so that needs to stay connected. Okay, so this all needs to stay connected. Let me see. I think I'm seeing a list here. I'm seeing a list of things that people can decorate their Christmas trees with. So I can actually replace that word and, not with a period this time, but with a comma. So let's see if that makes sense if I decide to cross out because I'm cutting those ands. If I replace them with a comma, let's see if they make sense. Other things people decorate their Christmas trees with include tinsel, tree toppers, and those can be angels or stars. So I'm going to cross it out and put a comma there. And I'm crossing it out and putting a comma, crossing out all my ands and replacing them with a comma. I want to be careful later when I'm working on my final draft that I don't think that those are apostrophes because they're up high. I only put them up high because I'm putting all of my corrections above the parts that I cross out. So I just need to make sure when I read them later that I know that those are commas. So other things people decorate their Christmas trees with include tinsel, tree toppers, those can be angels or stars, candy canes, ribbon, garland, and candles. Yeah, that totally makes sense with just those commas there. So I'm going to leave all of those just where I put them. As you can see, there are so many different types of decorations to use to decorate a Christmas tree. What do you use to decorate yours? Wow, my paragraph sounds so much better since I decided to cut or keep some of those ands. So your job today is going to be to read some of the work you've done. Ask yourself, where do I see a lot of ands? Do I need to cut or keep some of them? And if you decide to cut them, then your job is to rewrite those parts where you make those cuts. So now that I've modeled how to use our strategy to and or not to and, your job is to set the timer for 30 minutes and reread the work that you have so far, looking for places where you notice the word and a lot. Then ask yourself, do I need to cut or keep that and? And if you decide to cut it, you need to think about how can I rewrite this so that it still makes sense. Also, remember, when you cut an and, sometimes you're going to replace it with a period, but other times you're actually going to replace it with a comma. Anytime that you decide to cut an and, always reread the next sentence to make sure that it still makes sense. Also, double check to make sure that you are capitalizing the first letter in the word after you cross out the word and, because that means you're starting a new sentence and all of those letters need to be capitalized. So, as a reminder, you're setting your timer for 30 minutes. You're working on your writing wherever you are. And then today you're going to post an example on Seesaw of a part where you decided to cut or keep ands. Okay, good luck.